This is pretty much just kind of our intro page. The number on the bottom is our main line. If you call, looking for a general question, that's what you would order or call. The next email address below that is if you guys have a signed contract and you would like to start title with us, you would send those orders to gmorders@gm-title.com. And then the link below that is our general website. You would click on that link if you would want to. We have this really cool feature that a lot of our clients seem to like. It's online earnest money deposit. So if you click on that link, one of the tabs at the top of the site is online earnest money. You or your clients could click on that. We would need their account number and routing number for whatever account they would like the earnest money taken out of. They would enter that information in there, as well as property address, pretty much basic information. It's pretty much all laid out. You could do that on our website, as well as get any type of net sheet you want, buyer net sheet, seller net sheet. Maybe if they have a monthly amount that they can't go over, you could kind of enter that and work backwards and find out exactly what their, the top purchase price could be and all of that good information. So there's a lot of good resources on our website if you guys want to go and check that out.
If I may too, if you want one-on-one training on how to do a net sheet, Jade's happy to meet with you.
Absolutely. And I also have stuff if, you guys are working with elderly people, some people, who aren't exactly technologically savvy. I have created a PDF for step-by-step online earnest money deposit instructions, kind of took screenshots of what they would see and kind of, typed out exactly step-by-step on how to go about that. So if you guys would like that information, please feel free to reach out. This next page right here is just mine and Tiffany's contact information. The number on there, the 440 number, 465-2548, that is my personal cell phone. Again, I am available on nights and weekends. So if you do need me, feel free to call, text, email. That is my email right above that. And the same thing as well as Tiffany as well.
And we'll email this to you. To Danielle has this presentation, so she'll email it to you after the class today.
Yep. And then again, this is just our net sheet. Once again, just kind of letting you guys know the benefits of using our net sheet. Another really cool thing that a lot of agents like is our net sheets are also branded to you. So if you go into our net sheet and you create an account with your email password, you could also put in there like a little picture of yourself. And that way, when you generate net sheets for your clients, if you feel comfortable to do so, it will come up with your picture, your contact information, and it can be completely branded to you as an, as an agent. So this kind of is just pretty much the basics. This is on at any time, everyone who will touch your client's file from beginning to end. On any given file, at least 4 people will touch it. The first one is the escrow coordinator. This person just pretty much, they will reach out to your clients, introduce themselves. They will also process the file, which includes ordering payoffs for mortgages, home equity line of credits, surveys if there's a lender involved, or if your clients would like one, we could order one even if it is cash. If there's any liens, such as state of Ohio, prior owner mortgages, any liens on title, your escrow coordinator will take care of and get cleared for you and your clients. They will also, like I said, they will be, one of the main contact points for your clients if they have any questions at the beginning of the file. As soon as the order is entered, your clients will automatically get an email of who their coordinator is, as well as their escrow officer. And it will include contact information with their phone number and email address. The other main point of contact is the escrow officer. She is the person who's going to work with the buyer's lender. She is going to be the one to plug in all those figures. She's going to be the one who gets mortgages, mortgage instructions. She is pretty much in charge of the file. Yeah, and like I said, she is a main point of contact too. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to her. And another email that comes through is when the escrow coordinator is done with the file, we do send an email out to all of your clients and letting them know that their file is now in the hands of the escrow officer, just so they know who to call at any time they have a question. The other one would be the closing coordinator. This is when everything is done, CDs are balanced, we have a clear to close. And at this time, our closing coordinator will call all parties, get them scheduled. We also do have a team of mobile notaries, so they can go to whatever location is most convenient for your clients. And then the notaries will bring the documents back and we will get them recorded and take care of them for there. But your closing coordinator is going to be who will call all parties and get them scheduled at the end of the transaction. And then last but not least is the post-closing coordinator. She is the person who pretty much closes the file. She sends disbursements. She sends payoffs in, homeowners insurance, home warranties, commissions, all of that good stuff. That would be the post-closing coordinator. Are there any questions on that before I move on? Okay, perfect. Now, what does title need from you guys as agents? The first thing would be a fully executed contract along with your ABA. Please make sure that when you do send it in, that it is signed by both buyers and sellers. I know this sounds silly, but you wouldn't believe how many contracts come over with, one person completely missing. Another thing that is just really helpful for, and holds up any delays is sending your guys' escrow letter over right away with the initial order. Make sure that you include contact information for your client, especially email or phone. Otherwise, we can't get the information that we need in order to process the file. Point of sales are very important. We do not order those. So, just want to make sure that they are ordered, what the status is. And if you guys are unsure if a point of sale is required in a certain city, I do have an updated list as well. And I would be more than happy to email that out to you guys. It's the same thing with well and septic inspections. I know that that is required, I believe, in Jaga and Summit County. I know those are big ones that require both of those. Tiffany, correct me if I'm wrong.
Jaga, Summit, Stark.
Yeah. So if that is needed as well, it's just, those are some things that, if, we're not sure of, that it could possibly delay closing. Another thing that is just super helpful to know off the beginning of the transaction, if there's any bankruptcies, foreclosures, Canix liens, any liens that are on title, it's just super helpful to know just upfront, just so we could prepare for that. And as well as any update to closing. That could be purchase price change, closing dates changing. Another thing really important is if your clients are going to be out of town, that is something that we also need to know. Anything that would affect the closing date, please make sure that we are aware of as soon as possible. And this is kind of a chart flow, so to speak, of what exactly from beginning to end, how exactly we go about opening a file all the way till closing. I do apologize, it's kind of small. I can't really read it, but pretty much we get a file, we get the contract, we make sure that everything is in order, such as signatures, correct PPNs are on there, closing date. We make sure that we are in fact the title company and there's not another company written in there and we don't have the contract by mistake, because that does happen. From there, we order a title search, a 42-year search on the property. This is where everything were to come up, such as liens, bankruptcies, mortgages, lines of credit. Even if it's $0 balance, it is still on title. Even if lines of credit aren't used, they are still on title. And we pretty much, we get seller information, loan numbers for those, water sewer accounts, so we can make sure that everything is in place with that and make sure they don't owe like $4,000 on water and sewer, because that does follow the property and not the owner. And we clear all of those liens. From there, we get in contact with the lender, we get their title order and make sure, the loan amount is correct. If there is a lender on the deal, make sure the loan amount is correct, who will be on title. We order our surveys, make sure the points of sale are okay and communicate with you guys on that. The escrow officer has to go back and forth with the lender and make sure they balance and all of their fees are correct and they're on the same page. From there, when they balance, the lender will issue a clear to close. We cannot schedule any parties We usually don't schedule any parties until we have that clear to close from the lender. But we cannot schedule the buyer unless we have the clear to close from the lender. So we have to wait until we get the okay from them. And from there, our closing coordinator will get in contact with both parties. They will coordinate times for sellers and buyers to meet with their notaries, get everything signed. The notaries will then bring it back to us. We will get all of the mortgage papers and orders and send them down to the county for filing. And when we get the okay to the lender to disperse, we will do all of that good stuff. And I believe the transaction is closed. Tiffany, correct me if I'm wrong anywhere on that flow chart.
No, yeah, that's pretty much a breakdown of it. So
Yeah. So pretty much there are a lot of steps that go into title that, once again, like Tiffany said at the beginning of this, your clients don't care what goes into title, what goes on behind the scenes. What they care about is we close on time. Keys are in hand when they get it, when when the contract says they're going to get it. But I just wanted to kind of give you guys a visual of, what goes on behind the scenes on each and every deal that we do. And then I think from there, Tiffany's going to take it.
Sure. This page is just a reiteration of what Jade just kind of walked you through. I want to get into a little bit of the nitty gritty about things that we request and why we request them. So at the very beginning of the transaction, we send the seller what's called a seller information sheet. They fill it out, sign it, and send it back to us. It does a couple of things. It tells us how to reach out to their lender to get a payoff for a mortgage. Are they married? What's their spouse's name? Are there any other liens on the property? Is there a homeowners association or a condo association or both? Because sometimes there's two. And who services the water and sewer, or is it well and septic? Sometimes it's not on the property disclosures who services the water and sewer. So we need to verify that. The second thing that it does is they sign it and it gives us authorization to request items on their behalf, such as their payoff. This is very important. If we don't have this and we don't have it back in a timely manner, it could delay closing because we may not have their payoffs back in time. If you have a customer who is selling a home, especially, and it's in the name of a trust, an LLC, or a corporation, we will request the supporting documents to show who the members are of those entities, what authority they have, and that it was properly executed. We can't take someone's word for it that they're the president of ABC 123 company. We have to be able to prove it because we're insuring the transaction. A title company has two functions. Our first function, first and foremost, is to ensure clear title. These are all the steps that we do in order to ensure clear title. The second part is we facilitate the closing. So that's the closing disclosure, disbursement of funds, having them sign documents, things like that. In order to do all of that, we have to have appropriate information from the buyer and seller, contact information, fully signed, executed contracts. Do either of you know what an ABA is? Okay, so in your purchase agreements, you'll see under the title section, it lists GM title. And if you select us for closing, we will obviously do the closing for you, but there's also called an affiliated business arrangement. If you do use us for closing, your client only has to sign the affiliated business arrangement. This is very important. If we were to be audited and we did not have one, we could get in big trouble for not having it. So we do kick back a lot of times to the realtors who don't get them signed and let them know we can't do anything until we have that. And the reason we do that is because then it gives them incentive to actually get it over to us in a timely manner, which we appreciate greatly. So make sure you have that ABA. I'm sure Danielle provided all of that. It's probably in .loop or whatever system you're going to be using. It's already in there, I would imagine. You just have to make sure it gets signed by your client. The other party, if you're not representing both parties, so if you're the buyer's agent, the seller doesn't have to sign it, just your client. Whoever you represent has to sign it. A big thing that we hear all the time is we don't hear from you enough, or we hear from you too much. So again, we really do try to stay in the background, but also people do rely on us to keep them updated throughout the entire transaction. How I kind of explain it to people is we're kind of the eye of the storm, And then all of the tornadoes and hurricanes and everything is happening around us, right? So realtors, buyers, sellers, appraisals, surveyors, home inspections, water and sewer, all of that. It's our job to bring it all together and get to the closing table. So Jade kind of walked you through when we reach out. We reach out at the beginning, we request information, we let everybody know when title work has been completed and sent out to the lender if there is a lender. We let them know when the escrow officer has the file. We touch base with the lender every so often before closing, letting them know, hey, are we clear to close? Are you guys going to be on time? Are we moving along? That kind of thing. And then we update everybody. I feel like buyers and sellers about a week before closing panic and they say, I haven't heard from anybody, what's going on? Well, the buyer should know more than anybody because they should be in touch with their loan officer. But, you know, and as a title company, just as a consumer who's bought several houses, I would tell your buyers, they should check in with their loan officer once a week. Once a week, check in with your loan officer. You know, we can tell people all day that no news is good news, but they don't trust that. Human beings are not necessarily trusting beings. And especially when you're making the biggest investment of your life, you want to make sure it goes well and closes on time. So they should check in with their loan officer at least once a week. And what that does is it helps keep the buyer from panicking, and it helps keep everybody up to date as to what's going on. As Jade said, we cannot schedule a closing until we have a clear to close and we know when we're going to get the loan documents from the buyer's lender. Most of the lenders, especially cross country, they do a wonderful job of getting clear to closes on time or even sometimes early. And that's wonderful. And everyone thinks, okay, we have a clear to close, let's sign tonight. It's not that simple. So I'm going to kind of walk you through what that looks like from clear to close through all the way through keys. So when we get a clear to close, usually we're the last to know if a loan is clear to close because the loan officer will let the buyer and their agent know first. And then you guys kind of let the listing agent know, and then everyone kind of tells us last. That's typically how it goes. When we know we have a clear to close, we will ask the lender, okay, when can the buyer sign? Because they have to sign a closing disclosure 3 days before they're actually allowed to sign their closing documents. So just because they're clear to close doesn't mean they can sign tonight. It's up to the lender when the buyer can sign. Also, what we ask them is, when will we have loan instructions? Because they could be clear to close all day long, but it could be a conditional clear to close where they still need items from the borrower. Or they could be running 48 hours to even get us documents. Right now with COVID, refis are slowing down, but lenders are very, very busy. Most of the lenders you're going to be working with, like I said, especially, you know, in-house cross country, they are purchase driven. They know how to close a purchase. We work very well with them on a day-to-day basis. So they'll tell us, okay, the buyer can sign on Tuesday, no earlier than 11. And so we'll schedule the buyer and seller accordingly. And we go off of whatever the contract closing date is. We always recommend when you're writing a purchase agreement, there's 2 sections you can complete for closing. One is funds and documents in escrow, and one is closing, disbursement, and filing. We always recommend the funds and the documents are 48 hours before the filing date. So if your buyers want keys on Friday after work, they need to sign preferably on Wednesday of that week. This is very important. And the reason it's very important is buyers and sellers feel very squished at the end. Selling a home and buying a home is very much a hurry up and wait game. And we really try to make it less stressful for them as possible. And I promise you, if you do the 48 hours, it will go so much more smoothly. Also, oftentimes, because they don't sign 48 hours in advance, usually they sign the morning of, which we really try to avoid. We can't send confirmation of closing until later in the day, in between 4 and 5 o'clock. And then everybody worries, well, what's wrong? Why aren't we closed? Why aren't we closed? I need the keys. That part is very, very rushed. So if they sign 48 hours before, it won't be rushed. We could have a closing confirmation to them by noon on Friday, or 3 or 2, whatever that looks like. I will say, going back to the entities, we really do put a lot in place as far as reviewing items. We review title to make sure it's clear. We review the trusts, the estates, any power of attorneys or entities to make sure everybody is signing as they should. And underwriting has approved all of that. If you ever have a seller whose name is John Smith, call us right away. And the reason for that is the state of Ohio files judgment liens against people every day for not paying their taxes. Well, there's a lot of John Smiths in the state of Ohio. And if we don't have enough time to get a payoff back from the state of Ohio, or they send us a letter stating it's not our party, then it can take sometimes 3 to 4 weeks to get a response from the state of Ohio. On a good month, they're running 15 business days. During the summer, and we're already preparing for this, they run at least 20 business days, if not a full month, to get us what we need.
And there's nothing that we could do about that.
And there's nothing we can do. There's no hurry up process. It's the state of Ohio. There's no rushing a government entities. You probably already know that just from life experience. But there's nothing we can do. So the options are either we hold money for all of those liens, which may or may not be your John Smith, or we wait until we hear back from the state of Ohio, which will likely delay closing. But we do give them the option at the very beginning when we know, okay, this is going to be a problem. We reach out to your buyer or seller and say, you could possibly have these liens. More than likely, they're not yours, but we can't do anything unless we hold funds or would delay closing. But we do try to get ahead of that as quickly as we can. So once we have the loan instructions in hand and a clear to close in hand, and everybody has been called and they've been scheduled, the escrow officer works up the closing disclosure, balances it with the lender, and that's what tells the buyer how much they need to bring to closing. We also make sure that all the numbers match and balance for the seller so that they know how much money they're getting at closing. We email a closing statement to the buyer and seller separately, of course, secured for them to review before closing. Just know that depending on the lender and depending on when they got the clear to close and depending on all of those kinds of things, it could be 24 hours before closing. It could be the night before closing. It could be 1 hour before closing. And we try to prepare buyers for that, especially. We just let them know as soon as we have a figure, we'll get it to you. Go ahead and make an appointment at your bank for around 2 o'clock to wire the funds. And then hopefully they sign 48 hours in advance, and then the funds are waiting for us when we get in on Friday morning. As far as scheduling the closing and what that looks like, we have multiple options for your buyers and sellers to sign their closing documents. Right now, because of COVID, we're not doing any signings in the office. I'm trying to limit the exposure for my team members, because if we all get COVID, then nobody's closing your deals. So, and I know it's not a joking matter, but if one of us gets it, it's very likely others will, and we want to be really careful. So our notaries, we have an extensive list of local experienced notaries that get the documents from us and go out and sign your customers at their home, at work, outside on the patio, on the hood of their car, at Burger King, wherever the buyer and seller want to meet. That's where we meet them. Then the notary returns those documents back to us after signing. We audit the package to make sure that everything is signed correctly, is recordable and acceptable with the lender. We send everything over to the lender for review, which we're required to do by every lender. And then they let us know if we're okay to file, and then they wire us the funds. Some lenders are wonderful and they wire us the funds regardless. And then they give us the okay or tell us they need a few more things here or there. That way we already have the funds and we're not waiting on funds. Some lenders are still back in 10 years ago where they wait to send the funds, and that causes a lot of those closings are going to go out later in the day because we don't have the funds yet from the buyer's lender. All of our notaries are required to return the documents no later than 9 a.m. the day after signing. Sometimes if we have a signing and filing the same day, we will have the notaries either drive the documents right back to us from the signing, or we will have them stop at a UPS store, FedEx store, Office Max, and they will actually scan the documents right back to us to save time. And this way we can go ahead and get everything at least processed and in being reviewed, and then they'll bring the originals back for us. It used to be pre-COVID. I know the company I used to work for, which is a national title company, they never really went by the whole, you have to be filed in order to disperse. It's a local custom here in Northeast Ohio pre-COVID that in order to disperse funds and give keys and be considered closed, you actually had to be transferred and filed at the county. That's no longer the case. And the reason is because most of the counties, unless we can actually e-file, which in every county we do, they make it very difficult for us to be at the county at the times that we need to be at the county in order to transfer and file before we disperse, if that makes sense. Our time is very limited. They're not giving us enough minutes in the office, or what they'll do is they'll just have us drop things off and then they walk it through, and that can take a whole day. So it used to be you would just run in, you would go to tax map, you would say, okay, take a look at it. They would, you would run to the auditor, you would transfer it, and you would run to the recorder, transfer it. That process no longer exists anywhere in Northeast Ohio. They make it very difficult for us. So what we do is we make sure title is clear. We update title. We make sure we have all funds and everybody is signed, and then we disperse funds and the file is considered closed. As long as the buyer has homeowner's insurance, and as soon as money leaves our account, title insurance is issued. Everybody is covered. Again, there is no law in the state of Ohio that requires you to be transferred and filed before you disperse. Some sellers will still insist on this, and if they do, we're happy to accommodate, but can't guarantee it. So if you have a seller that does insist on this, please let us know right away, because they will definitely have to sign 48 hours before. If we're required to transfer and file before they will give keys. This is very important. We don't want to miss closing dates because the seller is not acknowledging what's happening with COVID in the counties. Most businesses are running business as usual, as we are. It's the government entities that make it a bit difficult for us. So after a couple of different options too, I want to bring to your attention for signing. If you have a buyer or seller out of state, we have a national notary company that we use that can send a notary to anyone in all 50 states. If they're a US citizen, they can sign with a notary here in any state that's needed. We can sign at 7 in the morning, 8 at night, 10 at night, 11 at night. It doesn't matter. We'll make arrangements. It's very rare that we reach back out to someone and say, we just don't have a notary that can fill that spot. Can we reschedule? Another option is remote online notarization. Fortunately for the state of Ohio, this was already a law well before COVID happened. And all parties log into a third-party system. They have a notary present. There's an authentication process where they verify the person is who they say they are, and then they proceed to signing the documents electronically and notarizing the documents electronically. This is very convenient, very efficient, very secure. We do it anytime we're allowed to do it. Unfortunately, the lenders here and across the country have not caught up to this yet. And so a lot of times they will not allow it for either the buyer or the seller to sign electronically. There have been circumstances where a seller is out of the country and we have no other choice but to sign them remotely. And sometimes the lenders will make an exception for that. We did have 2 sellers recently. We had a seller who sold a property down in Jackson Township who sold their property on a Friday and moved to Australia the next Friday. So we knew they were moving. And so what we did was we had a notary go right out to them on Tuesday and have them sign the deed and a few other documents at least. So that we didn't have to worry about them signing the most important document, which is the deed in Australia. We just had another one where they're leaving for Hong Kong or something along those lines for work. And we knew the realtor let us know right away. And within 3 days, we had a notary out there having them sign the really important documents. After the documents are signed, like Jade said, everything gets scanned in, sent to the lender. After we have the okay to file and we have the lender's funds and we have the buyer's funds, we send an email out to all parties letting them know we've closed and dispersed. For final water and sewer bill, and that's when the key exchange can happen. So that's the important part. That's what they want, right? They want the keys. So that's when the keys can happen. After you get that email, you can go ahead and give keys. We have a new integration coming up. We're going live this month where it will actually text you as well when we're closed, and it will text your buyer and seller. So you don't have to be worrying about your emails all day. Oh, did we close? Did we close? It'll just come right to your cell phone. It'll text you. It'll text you when we open a file. It'll text the buyers and sellers their signing information for where and when and who, and it will text them when we've closed the deal. After closing, we issue title insurance policies. Again, our main purpose is to insure the title. So we will send an owner's policy to the buyer to wherever they want us to send it. If they're moving into the house, we'll send it there. If they're not, we'll send it to their mailing address. They should keep this on hand. I always recommend they scan a copy to themselves and maybe email it to themselves and just keep it in their email somewhere. And then keep a hard copy at home. This is their title insurance policy that protects them for as long as they own the home or their heirs own the home. So their spouse, if they were to pass away, their spouse or their children or their grandchildren, if it goes for generation to generation, it protects them forever until they sell the home or go off of title. And then we send the lender a loan policy, which insures the loan for any title insurance issues. And at that point, really the only thing left, if there was a water and sewer hold, is getting a final water and sewer bill sent to us. So the sellers can choose to pay their final water and sewer bill and then show us proof that that has been paid. And then we will give them back their $200 or whatever the hold was for water and sewer. Or they can send us the bill and we'll take it out of the $200 and then send them the difference. This seems to be difficult for sellers to understand. They forget to send us the bill that's marked final. They forget to send it at all. They're just not familiar with the process. It's not something they do every day. So we have a really helpful printout that we put in their copy package. And then about a week after closing, we send a reminder email to them with exactly what they need to do. They need to get the final. It tells them who to email it to, let us know if you paid it, all those things. So there's no question as to what needs to be done. Our goal really from beginning to end is to answer questions before the customer has to ask us the questions. It's stressful enough buying and selling a home. The last thing they want to worry about was, who do I call again? What title company is it? Sometimes they might be dealing with 2 or 3 title companies. You know, if they're selling a house, then they're buying another house, and they might be dealing with 2 different title companies and a lender and realtors, and it's a lot. So we try to keep it really simple for them and really easy. Do you guys have any questions? No? How many closings have either of you had? None? 0? Okay. So I would highly recommend that you sit down with Jade, whether it be via Zoom or via in person, learn how to do a net sheet. It's really important that you're able to go into a listing appointment and understand how the numbers work for your sellers. It's also really important, especially if you're working with someone who's buying their first home and they're currently renting, and you're telling them, hey, you're wasting money on rent. You're paying $1,200. If you own this house, you could pay $890 a month. But you have to be able to show them something tangible on paper. Jade can show you how to do that. The net sheet's also really nice if you have a seller that says you've finally gotten them to say, okay, I'll sell my house, but I'm not selling my house unless I make the X amount of money. You can tell them through our net sheet app exactly how much they need to sell for, not exact, a ballpark, an estimated amount. You need to sell between this and this in order to make X amount. So that's something that's really crucial for your business. It's really going to make you stand out from others. And even if you don't know what you're doing, it's going to look like you know what you're doing. I promise. Also,
I believe I'm sorry. I was going to say, but I believe our net sheet actually has 11 different options for you and your buyers.
It does.
And 11 different scenarios. So it's endless. You know, if they have a question or a goal or something like that, believe me, we have a net sheet for it.
We do. Also tax and legals, if you ever need those for your listing appointments, Jade can assist with those. And of course, if you ever have any issues whatsoever, where you have a buyer who's just not understanding or a seller who's frustrated, a lot of times the frustration's not with us, it's with the process in general. And so what we do is just explain things to them and try to make it as simple as possible. So if you want Jade, grab their information. I'm sure we can, if you want to put in the chat screen your phone numbers, and Jade can reach out to you, or we can get the information from Danielle. She has a lot of helpful printouts and tools that she can send to you both.
Or if you guys would like, I could put my contact information in the chat box and you guys can reach out and, you know, as necessary.
That's a good idea. So that's really about it from us. I mean, in using GM title, a lot of people will tell you, I have my own joint venture. I'm in another joint venture. Why should I use your joint venture? You're going to hear joint venture a lot because most agents in Northeast Ohio are in a joint venture. And what I would just say is, we're experienced. We'll take care of your customers. Our fees are lower than any other title company in Northeast Ohio. I've cross-checked and looked at all of them. Even if it's only by $5, $10 a deal, we're $5, $10 less. We're not in the middle. We're not the most expensive. We are the least expensive with our biggest competitors, I should say. Also, they'll just be well taken care of. You know, our technology is amazing. We have these 2 new integrations coming up. It's going to do a lot of the work for the buyers and sellers. It's going to communicate with them seamlessly. They're never going to have any question as to what's going on. And we'll just take care of them. And then we have Jade and myself to help take care of you as well as your closing team. We really do consider ourselves part of your team. You're building a business. We're part of that business and we take it very seriously. And we know that anytime you recommend us, that you're putting your faith in us, and we want to fulfill that commitment to service you and your clients.